And today I am joined with somebody I've done a video with in the past from a project that I'm certainly an advocate of, and that is Luke from Brave Browser. Hello, Luke.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to see you again. And, you know, as I was thinking about it, Luke, honestly, and I'm sure you hear this all the time, I was looking at my calendar. I really should have done this video with you tomorrow. Because to be able to do a video interview with somebody by the name of Luke on May the 4th, just would have been a natural, but I'm sure you hear that all the time.
It's inescapable. I have so many fathers I never would have imagined, but
exactly.
Thank you, Mr. George Lucas.
Yeah, so may the 4th be with you in any case.
Thank you.
So I'm going to check over on our Facebook page one more time just to see if there's anybody coming on. So anyway, okay, so let's get into it while I'm watching this. So Luke, you and I did a video maybe a couple weeks ago talking about Brave Browser and Basic Attention Token. We explored and talked about a lot of elements of that. Today in this video, as I mentioned, this is really geared towards those marketing executives, helping marketing executives, agency owners, and content creators understand Brave Browser. So we can start with, and my goal really in these videos is to answer two primary questions. Number one is what are the issues in either the marketing technology, MarTech or AdTech environments that your project has identified, and how are you applying blockchain and decentralization to try and overcome some of those problems?
Yeah.
Because what I was going to share, you and I were talking about this beforehand, and as I've mentioned in some of the videos, and I don't know if you can see this, so I'm going to go back over here. This is one of my favorite graphics. This is the new chart. This is the MarTech and AdTech ecosystem, the newest chart that's just put out. And I'm not going to put it any closer to the camera so you can read it. It won't matter. You won't be able to read it anyway. The environment that we as either agency operators, CMOs, marketing executives, marketing teams, brand managers, whatever it might be, this is an ecosystem that contains over 6,000 individual vendors, latest count. And you can imagine each vendor's got at least one marketing solution, and I'll use air quotes for that, one marketing solution that they're providing. So that's over 6,000 marketing solutions that marketing teams, CMOs, marketing executives, agencies need to try and navigate through. So you tell me whether or not you agree with my hypothesis, Luke, is that there's bound to be, I don't know, lack of transparency, maybe some fraudulent behavior, and just general confusion in the ecosystem like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at, prior to joining Brave, I was the director of ad products at a company called OAO, and we used to kind of be the intermediary between the ad server, the publisher, and the agencies. And so when I started there, programmatic was like very minimal, just remnant inventory. By the time I left, programmatic was everything, and the fraud rates had just gone out of control. But a lot of my job at the time was just kind of, I'm sure everybody that's listening that's in the industry is familiar with just discrepancy reporting, viewability issues, things like that, and trying to fight between report data, that never really aligned very well. And there was also security risks too, and privacy risks. I mean, like the amount of malware, malvertising that kind of gets through the ad networks. And now, I mean, if you look at YouTube, there was a video about video ads on YouTube actually having like CoinHive scripts into mine cryptocurrency through ad networks now, which is we block that at Brave, but it's one of those things where the threats are always going to be evolving, and the more programmatic the industry gets, and I know there are things that are being worked on, but the greater the fraud, the greater, it's kind of like automation. The more it's just more of a bad thing that can happen. So we start with Brave basically by clearing the deck, blocking all of that stuff, third-party ad calls and scripts and trackers, and just kind of giving the user, a baseline for giving them authentic consent to opt into anything they want. So whether that's giving data, that's an ad platform, which is what we're working on now, or just paying publishers. I mean, we want to make it so that there's just consent first from the user, and that they get a really good, fast browser that that protects their privacy.
Okay,
so it's almost, yeah.
Let's take a step, because this might be an introduction. Chances are it's going to be an introduction to a lot of people to maybe they've never heard of Brave before. So
sure.
Let's just start at that fundamental, and then if you have something you want to present, we can do a screen share. So
sure.
So today we've got you as a core team member from Brave Browser, and Brave Browser also has the basic attention token. So those, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of these elements, those are the two core elements of your ecosystem. The Brave Browser, which is the utility, and the basic attention token. So introduce us to Brave Browser first.
Yeah. So Brave Browser was co-founded by Brendan Eich, who was a former CEO of Mozilla Firefox and a creator of JavaScript. He basically we use Chromium fork to make it stronger and protect privacy. And so like I was saying before, we block tracking ads. We make secure connections by default. Started in about 2015. We've been growing pretty steadily since then. We actually did a token sale last year too for the basic attention token for the other piece you were talking about, where it was May 31st. We raised about $36 million in 25 seconds. It was pretty exciting. But the whole point of that is to give kind of oil in the engine of the browsing experience. So what we want to do, and what we have done from the very beginning, has been to say, look, we're not here to demonetize. We're here to provide a new way for publishers, for advertisers, for users to all kind of, we all want this free internet, right? Like the cost of that free internet has basically become your privacy over time. And so what we're trying to do is reset that and say, look, these tokens, we can tokenize attention and have the blockchain be a verifiable reporting database that we can look at, and the advertisers and users can look at, and kind of help to remove some of the pain points. But that's basically it. I mean, we're putting the building blocks out there for an attention economy and an ecosystem that has integrity, and is a place where people can just browse and kind of leverage the technology and the advancements of it that have happened over the past years. It's a telling sign of the times when you go to a website in 2018 that never stops loading, but all the content's there, you know. And so much of this happens behind the scenes, and just by kind of taking a brute force approach and blocking a lot of that tracking and all those calls, you're protecting the privacy, but you're also getting a really nice performance uptick out of that as a result. And so I have a deck. I can kind of walk you guys through some of what we're trying to do here.
We can get in the deck. Let's clarify a few points again, because this is going to be this more than likely is an audience. They don't know anything about crypto or anything like that. You mentioned token sales. So just to clarify that, so what we are talking about here, Brave Browser and their token, basic attention token, by all practical means, if you've heard of things like Bitcoin, Litecoin, and maybe even Ethereum, those are the crypto, you hear people refer to them as cryptocurrencies. We don't want to get deep into the cryptocurrency side of things or blockchain, but just understand that in this digital world, there are coins, digital coins or digital currencies like Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Doge are in there. But then there are tokens as well, and tokens are pretty much anything built on the Ethereum blockchain. So those are tokens, and just so people don't get confused, we will come back to this point a little bit later, the role of their token, or this token, in their ecosystem. But you mentioned you did a token sale, and that's just how projects in this new space raise funds to be. It's like their IPO or their fundraising. Yes?
Right. Yes. Yeah. So you'll have projects that say, like, look, this is what we aim to do, and this is our team, etc. We actually have had a browser in production and working product for quite a long time, over a year before we did our sale. And these tokens are basically used. It's for a distinctive purpose, and in our case, it's for attention, for tokenizing attention, whether it's advertising or publishers, paying publishers for content, or anything that you could attribute to advertising, as a unit of account for advertising. So that's kind of what separates it with the tokens compared to a more general kind of cryptocurrency
Sure.
like Bitcoin. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, if you got a deck, if you want to do the screen sharing,
Yeah,
we
sure.
can get into the pitch. As I understand it, you told me this is a brand new deck, so
Yeah, you guys get the fancy deck. Let's load this up here.
yeah. So
All right, there we go. Sharing screen. You guys see that?
we do now. I do now.
All right.
Let me go over to Facebook and see. You can go ahead and get started. I'll just jump over to Facebook.
Yeah, and some of this I kind of briefly touched on, and feel free to interject too, because I've got you going full screen here. So we start off by kind of like identifying the pain points, where we've got these three main players in the space, where users, publishers, and advertisers, and most of them are hurting in one way or another with the status quo, as publishers especially, but the user and the publisher tend to kind of end up at the end of the line, and having the buck pass to them kind of situation. But advertisers, like I'm sure many of the people listening here are familiar, like there are these issues that have been pain points for quite a while, like lack of transparency in the supply chain, fraud. Like they're projecting to get out to $50 billion by 2025 if nothing happens. And then the attribution and reporting problems. You've got this issue with data now, and holding data and that liability that comes with that, with Facebook and Cambridge Analytica finally kind of bring some of the stuff to light. And then the reporting pains, like everybody in ops or product is kind of familiar with, discrepant reporting, or just having to have multiple vendors to do everything when we're really just trying to chase down what's going on inside the browser. So those things are broken, right? Like users are kind of feeling the pain pretty hard. Like I was saying, the page loads are taking a hit. The tracking is out of control. 175 is almost conservative, depending on the time of day for some of these things. And then there was an interesting study from the New York Times and Rob Lether and Medium, where they did some calculations, and it basically was like monthly average on mobile for news sites was $23 a month spent on ads and tracking. And so, this has costs that are real, that are attached to it. And then, there's this constant threat of mining scripts and malware and ransomware that just keeps going up. And managing that before Brave came around meant you'd have to go and download a bunch of extensions and make sure they're all up to date, and make sure that there was also a recent article where I think like 20 million Chrome users actually had the wrong ad blocker. It looked legit, but it wasn't AdBlock Plus or something like that. So there are just inherent issues with having to manage all of these things. And so Brave kind of changed that by being like batteries are included. You can get a browser, you can, have these things updated regularly, and browse the web without everything breaking. And like, this is a very condensed down version of what you were showing, the Martech version. This is the ad tech side of things with the Lumascape. It's kind of looking at all those players that are involved there, which really what we're trying to do is have a connection between a user and a brand and a publisher, or just a user and a brand. So users have kind of like responded with ad blocking, like I'm sure people know here, and all that. I mean, up to 600 million devices in 2017. That's a pretty good indicator of the problems that are out there with people in advertising these days. And so that's kind of why we're here. We're here to inspire users, publishers, and advertisers to kind of come together and be brave. And we're doing that through this system with this blockchain-based digital advertising. It consists of Brave, the basic attention token, and the ad platform, which we're actually testing out right now. And so what we can get from that is just an open and transparent system. And we can kind of break it down. Like this is like a super high level of like the blockchain. It's like a decentralized database of encrypted transactions where, it's uncompromisable, or, to the most, actually, nothing can really be compromised. It's probably the greatest bug bounty hacking project in the world. But anyway, it gives people better control over secure data, and it's trustworthy because you have a consensus-based model. It's like everybody kind of verifying these transactions together. So the benefits of bringing this to the blockchain is you can limit fraud, you can eliminate the middlemen in that LUMAscape, or at least rein them in and change the role that they're currently they have in the kind of like existing model. And it also creates transparency because these transactions are verifiable on the blockchain. How we handle that varies from project to project, but the main takeaways here is that, in an existing ad ecosystem, you've got a set of agency reporting, you've got the publisher reporting, and then however many other reports you get in the way. With the blockchain, you can say, look, like both parties can look at the same source that's it's kind of like publicly verifiable, and look at that and compare that against the data that they're seeing outside of the blockchain and have a verifiable source of data. So it really is a revolutionary way of reporting data and having that data be verifiable and available to the public to view, while you're also kind of having, while it's encrypted. So none of the actual like stuff gets seen, but you see that the transactions took place. So we start that with Brave. Like we have these kind of cool things, these stats in here where you can kind of see how much time you're saving, how many ads and trackers you're blocking. It's up to 8 because we block that stuff. You get up to 8 times faster mobile experience and 2 times faster desktop experience from what we benchmarked. The data is available on our website. The user can opt into what we're going to do with the ad platform is actually give the user tokens for opting in, and so it's like a rare opportunity for a user to actually kind of like realize, wow, like my attention is actually worth something. Whereas in the current model, you're kind of getting taxed on your data, and most people aren't even aware that their data is getting handled the way it is, or that it's even their data, which is kind of an interesting thing that happened with the old Facebook testimony. You had Zuckerberg saying like, this is your data. This is the user's data, mm-hmm. which is, it's kind of lost over people now, especially younger people. But it's really interesting time. So we block malware, ransomware. We eliminate the need to like manage a bunch of extensions for these things, and we cut the costs, like I was saying. Then we use the token to exchange attention between users, publishers, and advertisers. Users get BAT to still look at ads. They can use that BAT to spend it on premium content, or you could imagine, like, think of it like a frequent flyer mile in the browser. And so you'll browse, you'll get to see ads, you'll get tokens for ads. You can use those tokens to pay publishers and content creators. You could use it to buy pieces of content. You could use it to convert it to like a gift card or something like that. You can basically form a direct relationship with a brand that you didn't have before. We're kind of trying to open the door to that. Publishers can receive BAT as well. They verify their domain with us, and they get BAT that's collected from users browsing on their site. And that's basically kind of like the core of what we're trying to do here is like cut out the middle and form these direct relationships between the parties that are at the endpoints, right? Typically, and use this new technology to kind of like gut out a lot of those other costs that are spread between those parties. And so we're going to do that with the basic attention token ad platform. You're going to see 2 types of ads that we go to market with. It'll be kind of like a user-based ad where the user is browsing, they see a push notification, and they engage with that push notification to go to a new tab where they get to see like a beautiful full-page content. And we'll cover that in a later slide. But publisher-based ad is similar. They leverage the benefits of our platform, but we actually will use an existing ad slot in the page and use our matching technology to put the ads in the page, which I'll cover in a little bit. So like I was saying, like users opt in to see the ads, they get rewarded to see the ads from that. We're going to give the user 70% of the revenue share for the ads, and then have Brave take 30%, which is pretty pretty good chunk for this direct user ad. You're going to end up seeing a lot fewer ads, maybe like a minimum one, maybe at a maximum 5 or 10 a day. We're, instead of matching ads from a server from the cloud and leaking the user's data, we're actually going to take the device, the data that's on the device. So you could think of it like your search browsing data. Your smartphone is basically a smartphone, right? Like, so what we're trying to do is leverage that smartphone with smart ad serving. So we can push a catalog of all the ads to the device and edge cache that. So it's really, really efficient, and have it be something that's matched based off of the data that's on the device without having to leak all this data to these third parties and match off of those fragments and profiles. So what you end up with is just like the most direct data set from the user to match the most to make the most effective ad match in real time. So like as the user browses, so you could figure out if a user's at home, if a user's at work, if a user is driving, and know the platform will know to serve an ad at the right time, and it'll keep a record locally of things that the user's done. So it's kind of turning the ad serving model on its side a little bit, but it's all done in the name of kind of efficiency, privacy, and in just more effectiveness. And so that's what we're aiming to prove with this thing. By keeping the data on the device, we use these things called zero knowledge proofs, which is basically, you can think of it like a ballot, or instead of a traditional impression, this proof gets made that proves the event, but it doesn't track the individual user. So we can report that a thing happens at a place and a time, and then report that anonymously, and not have to persistently track a user. And we can aggregate the data so that a marketer or an advertiser gets to see something similar to what they're used to seeing, almost like a heat map of activity, and then verify that stuff on the blockchain. So what you end up with is this kind of privacy by design, smartphone, smart matching kind of ad platform.
So before you move on,
yeah, sure.
Can you take a question?
Absolutely.
If you're cool with that, I don't want to interrupt you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here, and because we did have a question related to that, so I'm going to post that in our chat right here, and this is from David.
Okay.
And so I just put it in there. I don't know if you see it.
Whenever people say eliminating the middlemen, it's simply not true. The middlemen just change what they wear and get a new haircut. Love more specifics on seeing the transparent money flow from end to end, so we can see where the ad dollars are being distributed. That's a great point. I mean, we've had these discussions too with some major vendors, and what I think you'll end up seeing is a pivot for companies that were in between the user and the advertiser in the existing ecosystem. So you could think about it like if you have a viewability vendor that like Moat or someone like that typically deploys with the tag on the page, and then you'll have the publisher measuring that from the page. Well, there's nothing saying that Moat could not get really good at visualizing blockchain data and presenting that to people in a way that they're used to in like a SaaS dashboard, for example, or something like that. So I think that what you'll end up seeing is you'll see a lot of these middle players kind of get cut out. I mean, I'm not saying this is going to completely uproot everything either. I think what we're doing here is basically building a viable alternative that can leverage what's already out there. So you could have roles for middle players on the edges, basically like verifying from the blockchain and helping to make marketers and advertisers make better decisions. And so if you're looking at how, I'm not sure how far we want to get into the money flow for this stuff, but what we're going to do with this is basically start with a self-serve kind of ad platform for marketers and advertisers to use. They'll be able to see settlement data that happens in like a heat map of activity by geo. They'll be able to see that data that gets settled to the blockchain with a settlement ID, and you'll have both parties involved able to kind of verify this stuff that's happening. So the middle players are going to have to adapt anyway. But what we're trying to do is cut out the inefficiencies. And so, like, I know this sounds very scary, right? Like, for this can be really kind of terrifying for the ad industry, right? Because and I was, right in the middle of it, but what it really is saying, like, look, like, there's a better wrench for this stuff. The smart players are going to do what smart players do, which is basically adapt and figure out how to leverage this new technology in a way. I think that what you're going to see some trouble with are people trying to, put a square peg in a round hole.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if you try to say that every single impression in real time or every single bid in real time is something that we're going to verify to the blockchain, it's just not going to happen right now or in the near future. I think that the way to think about it is, like, with all these blockchain projects, is what is the actual product or project, and how are they leveraging the blockchain, and have that blockchain be backed up against a solid product. So in our case, it's saying, look, like, everyone's hurting from all this activity that happens from this congestion, whether it's privacy or traffic going across the wire. Like, it might be forcing an issue, right, for some of these middle players. But I think that what you'll end up seeing is an evolution where, like I was saying, they'll verify that data. There are some definite areas for some areas that are ripe for improvement in the blockchain space, like user experience. Even people that know how to use the blockchain or look at the data, it's complex. It needs work to visualize. So I could easily see third parties evolving their business model to this new way of doing things, which also is like less of a liability for them. Like, if you're looking at data on the blockchain as opposed to having to store, I mean, anybody in the industry right now that is doing global business is forced to think about GDPR and think about how are we handling people's personal data. And it's not even a matter of like what's personal data anymore. It's an issue of like, am I storing data, right? Like,
Right.
And with our model, we're trying to say, look, Brave as an organization, we do not want to hold any data. Like, we want to design protocol and a model that says we don't need to collect data. Like, you can still verify that things happen without having to become like collect data on everything anyone's doing all the time. Like, we shouldn't have to do that. Like, so it's 2018. What's our way of doing that, right? So this is what our stab at is basically saying, like, it's good on everybody if we don't have to store this data. Like, it wasn't as bad as it is now. It's really bad now. Like, I mean, like, the people are testifying in front of Congress. This is serious stuff, and I'm sure that I mean, I know just from working in the industry, right? Like, I would have loved to have better reporting. I would have loved to not spend hours going through and having to justify why the numbers don't line up. And if we can bring that value on top of the privacy and just as kind of like novel way of looking at things, like with regard to advertising, then we're going to be the ones to do it. And so that's kind of what we've been charging hard to do, is to drive that type of a model forward.
Okay.
I hope that answers the question. Like, and kind of.
Yeah, I mean, maybe a point to be made here is that, and I try and encapsulate this thought, is we completely understand that the exploration of blockchain application in all areas of business, there's really not any area of business that we're not seeing a press release or a news article that some enterprise business or some business isn't attempting to implement blockchain into it, whether it's IBM, I think it was IBM announcing their partnership with Halesburg Diamonds to try and to track diamonds, whether it's Walmart tracking produce from farm to shelf, Salesforce. I mean, even NASA is implementing blockchain technology in their attempt to track space junk. So right now, we're just in a massive exploration of what is possible due to blockchain technology. We need to acknowledge that we do have a ways to go to prove out some of these concepts to their end.
Absolutely.
And it's not going to be perfect in the beginning, and it's learning.
Hmm.
We didn't get the internet right in the beginning either.
Right.
So to expect perfection right out of the gate is probably unrealistic. Um,
Yeah, and I would agree. Like, I think that's an important thing too, right? Like, you look at how blockchain projects, there's a lot of noise, right? It's a slow roll. Like, where things have exploded really fast in this industry, and when you look at things on a white paper, and then you look at the real world, there's got to be a bridge there, and some it's got to grow. You got to crawl, walk, run with this stuff,
yeah.
and it's tricky with all the noise. But that's kind of what we're doing is like we're saying like, okay, where does it make the most sense to apply the blockchain to this project that we have, and then always kind of thinking like, well, but marching towards more and more activity going there as the blockchains kind of mature and some of the issues that everyone's dealing with kind of get resolved over time. But you're absolutely right. Like, it's not perfect at all, and it's actually quite intimidating for people when they're starting out. Even just researching can be tricky because there's so much information out there. So
Well,
yeah.
so to point out again, with the idea of targeting this towards, the marketing executives and maybe even the other agency owners and people that don't necessarily have a great deal of comfort in the crypto space, would you agree that at a core fundamental of why blockchain,
Hmm.
a core fundamental of that is the move from centralized, like the walled garden approach, the centralized data keeper, to decentralization and greater transparency through that decentralization. Would you agree that's kind of a core element of all these projects?
I would absolutely agree. Like, it's about restoring trust through a trustless mechanism where, like, you've got companies, and we tend to lead in with these with I think it was Mark from P&G came out and said, like,
Yeah.
things are kind of out of control in the digital advertising space, and you've got companies that are really concerned about brand safety, and then you've got this at the same time you've got content creators, which agencies are dealing with as well, that are kind of almost pigeonholed to move away from creating content for their viewers and making content that they know is more safe. So there's this interesting point that we're at right now where you know there's just people are just begging for something new with this, and so I think that we're at this pretty integral point for both, and especially for advertisers and marketers. Like, how could, if you had a chance to restore a more direct relationship between you and your customers, like, and your target audience, what would you say yes to that, if there were the tools there to do it, and like, are there things like that you would love to see that this new technology provides? Because I think that's the other thing with anything blockchain related is the system, like the space right now is very heavy into solving problems, which is amazing, and that's a great thing that technology is going to do. But I think that the other part that we haven't seen yet is just like, once we get past kind of scratching that surface, like, what are people going to create with this technology, like from zero? Like, it'll be pretty interesting as things evolve, and we get beyond this first couple of years of figuring out how the best way to kind of use smart contracts to solve problems, and then see like, okay, like, these are the new building blocks. Like, what can an advertiser do? Like, what could a brand do if they had an opportunity to like directly curate a relationship with a user, and a user that feels like they're not being watched, and they can make decisions that don't that are just purely like from their intent, and not under the eyes of other people or influenced by redirects or things like that. So that's kind of where we're going with this stuff, and I think it's really interesting.
Well, even the slide here, and this is kind of where we left off. And
Yeah.
what's interesting about your project and some of the other projects out there too is they're acknowledging that the user is a driving force of everything that we do as agencies, as marketers, or what have you. Without the user, there's nobody to market to, so to speak. But like your project is recognizing they have a role, and the end users going from being the product to being a participant in that. So that's kind of where we left off here, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, with this, we're basically showing like users, your attention has value, right? And we'll give you these tokens, and you can use these tokens. Which, I mean, we're probably, you know, people won't even necessarily refer to them as tokens. It's just going to look like a point system, and then you can use that for other things. And so, how can we cater that experience with that fuel in place? And so, yeah, like to kind of pick it back up, like for publishers too, right? Like, because those are, agencies are dealing with them. We offer publishers basically a 70% revenue share off of our ad product, and we still give the user 15%. So one of our core principles at Brave is that, you know, we always want to ensure that the user gets the same or equal to the revenue share that the platform gets, because that's why we're in this. We want this to be the new kind of like window to the web, and the new way that business can get done online. And so we're able to kind of leverage the blockchain to and our privacy model to, like, you know, get around be GDPR compliant, but provide a personalized experience for a user, but also offer, you know, publishers a co-brand opportunity with advertisers that they may not have had before, with different parameters that they you know, that they can engage with in a more direct way. So we have to start small with this, right? With just saying like, okay, like we can leverage this local targeting model and serve a more relevant ad that the publisher can sense, you know, to allow in their slot and give them a better deal than what they're currently getting, which is just like diminishing returns all over the place. And then start there, and then make that a way to kind of like work with publishers as well. And so you've got, because agencies deal with both, like it's a natural pairing between content and the end user. And there's a whole loyalty, you know, the loyalty there between brands and publishers and users is like pretty unbreakable once you get it set. So like we're just basically leveraging that with our system. And yeah, so let me pop over to yeah, this kind of touches what I won't spend too much time in this, like, because we kind of been talking about it unless we want to.
Well, before you leave this one, let's touch on a point because it's a hot topic right now. So one of your bullet points talks about being GDPR compliant.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So because that's such a hot topic, and here we are in May, maybe if you just want to touch on that just a little bit. Why? Well, what makes it GDPR compliant, and what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so the way that we do the attribution uses these zero knowledge proofs, which basically means it's like an old school blind vote. You put your vote in the box, so we can take you know, metrics and make those into ballots and have that be something that's voted on. So those proofs of activity will be used instead of an impression where you're sending user data that's going to a server. So we can keep the user's data on their device locally without Brave even touching it, and then generate these proofs that just verify the activity that don't contain that tracking data, and not have to store anything on our own servers. And so that means that if something were to happen to us, you know, whether it's you know, somebody stole a server or broke in, or there's some vulnerability that got exploited, we don't have any of the user's data, and our model's designed not to collect it. So it's reducing a huge service of liability for everybody involved by not requiring that data collection. I think the challenge for us is being able to show the advertisers and publishers that what we can present is close or better than what they're used to seeing, and how they're used to like measuring and tracking performance for their ad campaigns. Like we absolutely have to deliver on that. Like, and it's really critical. Like we can't. I mean, like just talking about blockchain is confusing enough, but expecting somebody that's already, you know, as occupied as people are in advertising and operations space to relearn something is crazy. Like it's not gonna happen. So what we have to do is provide just another access point on a dashboard. And so that's one of the things we're trying to do. But with the privacy thing, you know, like if we design this to not collect the data to begin with, then we're in a much better position than trying to have to figure out how to make, you know, this privacy model work in a business model that is the complete opposite, right? Like, and I think, you know, it's going to be an interesting month. And interesting June as well to see like how the enforcement side of this goes, because you know the actual legislation, or not the legislation, the you know, the actual GDPR policy is pretty. It could have a lot of teeth, you know, if it gets enforced the right way. So we just want to bypass it. We want to say, look, we don't collect the data. Like, we've got a better way of doing it that doesn't involve this. And so that's what we have to prove too. But the cool thing about this is that we have had a payment solution in the browser for desktop since September of 2016 that used to use Bitcoin. And then in October, we switched to BAT for paying publishers that uses these zero knowledge proof protocols. So we've actually had the attribution model in production for close to 2 years, or over 2 years, over a year. Anyway, it's been in production for quite a while, and it's tested. So we're just going to continue to build off of that. And I think you'll see more from us on the side of like data visualization, and providing, you know, a lot of options that advertisers and marketers and publishers are used to seeing, that we might have traditionally blocked. Like, we don't let Google Analytics get through. So like, our challenge is to basically like get those KPIs that the advertisers want and the publishers are used to seeing, and using it as our data. So it's like, it doesn't matter if I have to profile everyone or if I don't have to profile anyone, as long as what I'm seeing is the attribution path between, you know, touch point to purchase is trackable. Like, why do I care if it's John or whoever? Like, and why do I want to pay all those people in between to basically collect all this data? So that's our angle on it, is that, you know, the best approach is to just not collect the data. Yeah. And so that's kind of like what sets us a bit apart too, is that we've been really aggressive on the on data. I mean, on not collecting data and on having really strong privacy requirements and principles as a company. So the GDPR stuff we're positioned pretty well to thrive in that.
So yeah, I'm going to come back to Jacob Knight says, says, what's up, buddy? Hey, buddy. Brian Larson. And Jacob Knight did say that, what did he say? He says, the main man, Luke, and this is going to change the foundation of the internet. And you know what? And I think the thinking here is, it is certainly brave. And several of these projects, they do visualize a better internet. Right. And I think that's the direction that we go in, and hopefully we can support that. So on to whatever you got next there.
Yeah. So yeah, we've been kind of touching on this whole publisher, advertiser, brand, user triangle, you know, of these relationships, and much of this is stuff we've already kind of talked about. But yeah, I'd like to touch back on this, like, personalized, kind of curated experience. You know, we could turn the private tab into almost like a shopping mall for a user online, and just make it so that they're basically getting paid to browse through ads, or you know, another piece that we haven't really talked on very much, and I think it's later in the deck, but we set aside, like, one of the things that these blockchain projects can do in the token space is set aside tokens for specific purposes. And what we did was we set aside 300 million of these tokens before the sale to say, like, these are for user growth. So it's a situation where we have, I mean, and that fluctuates, you know, the actual value of those tokens fluctuates in the market, but we're in a position right now where we've got funding to build the platform. And then we've also got this big pile of marketing spend, whether we give it directly to consumers, which is what we've done. Like in January, we give $1 million worth of this stuff away for people to adopt the browser, or we could do B2B, or, you know, work with an agency, brand, and a publisher to kind of come up with some interesting deals. Like to kind of build and grow this ecosystem. So it's another thing that sets apart projects in this space from the existing model. Like, or if we had used Bitcoin, where like we aren't generating our own token, so we couldn't have done this same thing and been able to experiment and to the degree that we are, like, which is just starting. Like, and we did our first user grants in December, which is a smaller amount, but then, you know, we had a good enough experience with that we expanded it to $1 million in January. And I think we ran out in like 7 days or something like that. It was really fast. And then we started to do promos with publishers too, where, you know, if you're a publisher, you verify with us, which just means that we can tell that you actually own the channel or site. We'll actually give you BAT if you can bring over users to our platform. So we'll give you $5 in USD equivalent in BAT for every active user that you bring to Brave. And so these are just like the very beginning of us trying to experiment with like different ways that we can grow the ecosystem, the user base, and like come up with new ways to use the token with these core parties that are involved with the ecosystem. So I would expect more of this experimentation, because another thing I do a lot of business development with Brave, and like one of the things we sit about in the room is say like, look, you know, you guys know your business model better than we do. Like, we're going to give you some tools here. Like, if there are things here that, you know, you've wanted to do, like, here's your opportunity, and we're a small startup. We can make things happen that, you know, typically get weighed down, et cetera. So like, yeah, like, we want to just basically use this as a new way to kind of browse the internet, and then also test the definition of what a browser is. And like, we're really at an interesting point with technology where you've got like out of home advertising kind of picking up at the same time that this kind of privacy movement is building up. And you might see some interesting stuff from us where we might be able to verify, you know, that with BAT that you viewed a ad in out of home, or like whether it's a poster or, you know, a billboard or something like that, and use a token to be a form of verification for out of home things in the real world. And so we're just getting started with this stuff basically, but it's exciting. And so, yeah, like, I mean, they can walk through kind of like, this is what the ad model that we're talking about. It's kind of supposed to be animated, but actually, like, so the user gets this push notification here, clicks it, a new tab opens here, and you can embed a video, you could have a full page ad. It's a blank canvas. Publisher sees, you know, like I was touching about earlier, the ad slots on the page kind of running through. That's stuff that you're familiar with. We can probably get that going pretty quickly. And it's almost like in a way for publishers, a privacy first programmatic source in a way, because we're pulling from this catalog that we push to all the devices. So it's not like you're going through a lot of like DSPs and exchanges and things like that, but you're going to be able to programmatically fill these slots on the publisher side based off of the local data. So it's something new using the existing real estate. And so, pardon me. And so, one of the reasons, though, like, if you're not verified with us as a publisher, we're not going to show ads in pages. Like, that's one of the reasons why we're going with the push model for notifications, is that we don't want to, you know, like, get in a position where a publisher feels slighted by what we're doing. We want to be a partner with the publishers, and we want to show them, you know, like, a new way, a new vertical, basically, to a new way to look at things, right? And so, yeah, and so, like I mentioned before, we've had a working product for years. We're one of the few that actually had, you know, a pretty solid product before we had our token sale, and it's growing. We're at over 2.2 million monthly active users, about 75% mobile, 25% desktop. We have over 375,000 wallets that have been created with our token, and we have 14,600 verified publishers. So this has got teeth. Like, this is something we've been really heads down. We're not out pumping the project and marketing it like crazy. We've been very smart about, like, you don't want to overmarket with these things before they're ready to be marketed. And so, you know, we put a lot of time into getting the product right, getting the message right, like, making sure that, we can make an internet that's browsable, and, still gives you the privacy and security that our team really wants you to have. So we started to do things with YouTube creators last November. In that time, we've grown to over 9,000 YouTubers that have joined our platform, and with an overall reach of over 180 million subscribers. We did some interesting stuff with Dow Jones. We made an announcement 2 weeks ago, I think roughly 2 weeks ago, where we're actually giving users 2 years free subscription to Barron's or MarketWatch for viewing it in Brave, which is kind of wild because, Dow Jones is pretty, they've been around for a really long time. They're really established, and they're looking to innovate just like, so many others are. And what we want to do is basically we've got the model to do that. We can show Barron's or MarketWatch subscription only in Brave, and we can give it to you, our users, kind of comp using that growth pool that I was talking about of these tokens, these 300 million. And so we've also kind of signed on some pretty large YouTube stars. Bart Baker's got 10 million subscribers, really looking to shake things up. And Philip DeFranco joined us. We just announced last week, but both of these guys, they've spent a long time going from zero to huge audiences in YouTube. And these things with the YouTube demonetization, a lot of it, the focus ends up being on a user has to have X amount of views before they get monetized. But what we started to discover when we were digging into this more around November was, a lot of the big, career type YouTube creators that have, what you would think would be safe audience sizes and good monetization are really hurting. A lot of this is algorithm mix mash of the different filters colliding and getting weird results, but ultimately they're losing a lot of revenue from these things that they were making the same content they were making a year ago, better content, but they're not getting paid nearly as much for it. So they're all looking for new ways to make money. That was one of the interesting things too, is that we were pretty hesitant when we first started talking to them. We were worried about being an ad blocker and going into them, and a lot of them were like, "Look, we make money off ads, but really we've been having to do other things because advertising is kind of we can't rely on that to be our only source of income." And so what we're able to do with the token is say, look, we're not going to demonetize anything. Make your content, we'll measure it, we'll account for it with this token, and then we're exploring other things to do with them as well. But it's important for us to get some people on board. Everybody's kind of a creator on the web, and the web has been so great for the creation of business and creativity and merging those two things. And it's a shame when a creator has to limit what they do because the delivery mechanisms for the ads aren't working well, and the targeting is misfiring, and all of a sudden you're getting kids viewing ads they should never be seeing, and brands freaking out about that too. So anyway, so we've been spending a lot of time just growing the product, and it's important too for ad trials. So we want to make sure that we have enough of a user base to really make an impact and impress people in the advertising industry.
Well, this slide really says a lot. If you're looking at this as a marketing executive, or again as an agency person, or even as a content creator, to look at a slide like this and just see, there's traction has taken place, adoption has taken place, and those are some of the things that we always look at these new technologies. Oftentimes, people get accused of chasing the shiny objects and the next hot thing and all that and the next social, and that's completely understandable. And that's something that we deal with within the industry is chasing platforms and chasing technologies. But there's no doubt that this isn't just the latest technology. This isn't just the latest shiny object. This is transformative, not only in the environment that we operate in, but business in general, and it's going to be your healthcare records or what have you, that's at the blockchain. So, so to look at this and see, all right, 2.2 million monthly active users, and just in the reality of looking at this and helping these executives and decision makers understand this. I don't think anybody's arguing that you're about to displace Google or anything like that. But also, I would want to point out is at no point during this presentation did Luke say that they're a search engine.
Right.
And so I really want to make that point. So people looking at this, and I have had conversations with people about Brave saying, oh, yeah, they'll never be able to replace Google. I don't think anybody's saying replace Google as a search engine. Understand that this is a browser. They're not trying to be a search engine. And maybe you can talk a little bit more about the built on Chromium and how you can still use Chrome. But also, before we get into that, is take notice of the fact that over 14,000 verified publishers. They've been getting a lot of attention by YouTube creators that can drive audiences for adoption. And I'm guessing would they not be doing that, Luke? Would they not be introducing their viewers to Brave browser and driving that adoption?
Well, that's one of those things where we wanted to use the user growth pool to really test out how we could build up this influencer and creator market. So the referral promo program that we did, that it's still running too, by the way. Like we put $1 million in it at first, where it's a pot of $1 million worth of BAT, and creators can get $5 for helping to use their influence and grow our user base from their channels. So we added Twitch in addition to YouTube to our platform in March, and we expanded that program from $1 million to $2 million to just make it something that people, if you're having trouble monetizing and easy, people think about browsers as like something that's hard to switch to, but it's actually a lot more liquid of a market than people think. And if we're providing a good browser, then creators have had no problem going out there and promoting it. I mean, like this guy Bart Baker, before he would go on and talk for an hour about Brave and get, we would see all the referral numbers kind of just go through the roof because people were checking it out. They were going to the Android Play Store and just like leaving like save Bart hashtags in the reviews, and these influencers, they influence, right? Like they're drivers, and what we're doing is also hoping to kind of make this a place where you could see creators making product placement deals directly with brands or agencies, and finding even more aside from getting paid as users view their content, finding other ways to make deals directly with these brands and connect on that level. So there's also one other partnership that we just announced today with Town Square Media. They have local radio stations, but also they have like Double XL Magazine and a lot of other publications. I think there are over 300 properties all together. We started working with them in June, talking to them after the token sale, looking for the right fit for things. But basically, with today, we announced a partnership, and with 4 of their publications, Double XL, Pop Crush, Taste of Country, and I think Classic Rock, Ultimate Classic Rock. If you go to the website with Chrome or another browser with an ad blocker, instead of blocking the content like a lot of the existing ad blocking detection sites do, we basically show an overlay that says, look, we see that you're ad blocking. You can use Brave, you can block ads, you can still support the publishers and the content that you view on the web, and then offer that as an alternative, and in turn, like re-engage with that user that's been lost, that would have from the revenue side of things because they're using an ad blocker, like reform that publisher relationship with that user, still give the user what they want by having an ad blocking experience in the browser, and then providing a new vertical with the token in our payment platform for the user to continue to contribute. And so we're going to do more with them too. We're going to do publisher ad pilots, and they're big in the audio space. So we're going to start to play with that and audio, and in other ways that we can utilize the token, because you pay attention when you're listening to just as much as when you're seeing. And so that's something that it's cool to be able to announce today. I mean, we just kind of pushed the PR for it this morning, and it's been a long time coming. So we're out there making. We're really hitting the pavement with this, and the innovators, the early movers are excited about what we're doing. And yeah, we're not a search engine like you were talking about. Like, we're a browser. Like, we want to be the gateway, and we want to be a stronger gateway to the web than what's out there. And we're not out there to displace Google. And a user can go in Brave, and they can use Google as their default search engine out of the box. But we also have other options too, because what we're trying to do is build up. Privacy is more and more of a concern, and so we're working with businesses that are privacy focused, like DuckDuckGo. We did a deal with them in I think it was October, where they verified with us, and so we're kind of proving out a business case with the token with search engines, and so we offer that as an option. And you look in the private tab, you have a toggle to use DuckDuckGo as a default search engine. It kind of touches on something where we're getting ready to come out with, which is like giving users the ability to connect over Tor with private tabs to actually give them a private browsing experience, which is something that a lot of users think that they have private browsing and private tabs, and it's not really the case.
Right.
So so these are just ways. We're just trying to be a platform. We're trying to be a way to drive around the internet or fly around it, and then use these tokens kind of like the frequent flyer mile to pay for it. So like. We would be dumb if we thought, out of the gate, we're going to just like completely rip down this whole thing. Like, it's just not going to happen. But what we can do is work with businesses, agencies, advertisers, everybody, and say, like, look, here's a new place for you guys to test something out. And I think, like, I meant to mention this earlier, but we've talked to a lot of agencies. I went into 360i, like Fitz Nora over there had me on a panel, and they're big innovators, and what we can do for them, what they think is pretty interesting too, is like, it's rare to have an opportunity where you've got a user that is incentivized to opt in and knows that they're opting in to view ads, but then also isn't influenced by seeing a million other ads, and the banner blindness thing goes away.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got a place where, like, I saw something, I think I was watching Westworld or something, I got goosebumps when the guy was talking about it, where it's like, you've got the user in a situation where they're actually like free to kind of be themselves, like they don't have somebody watching over their shoulder or really retargeting and following them where they go. And so if you're a marketer, you could look at what we're presenting, data-wise, if you ran a campaign with us or something like that, and find out, new information that you could use when you're making your other ad buys, or use us for testing or something like that. There's a lot of, there's some new stuff that we're doing that isn't really done in the existing ecosystem. So even if it's just a gut check to say, like, look, I've got all this spend out here, right? Like, what do these users think, like when we try these two messages here or something like that, and using that data and seeing how that can improve or optimize your yield outside of the browser or outside of Brave even. So there's other ways. I mean, like, it's a lot more complementary than people think. People they get scared of the ad blocking thing, but it's just a necessary evil. If we're gonna try something new, we have to do something new, and it's gonna involve breaking some stuff, and resetting the board is necessary when you're trying to create something new. And so that's it takes a while for us to get to this point, but right now it's really exciting because we're running ad tests now. We're going to be doing beta trials. We already are like engaging with agencies to do betas and get their feedback. I mean, we're really out there trying to build relationships with these parties because we're not going to survive without them. So it's something we want to know what agencies think. We want to work with them on trials and make sure that we're delivering something or giving the feedback we get it can influence the product. Like, if there's something that an agency would love to see, we're not claiming to know everything or even pretend to know everything about what an agency wants. And so by being able to engage with them at this level, it's huge for us to make sure that we're delivering a product that they, are not only going to be comfortable with, but are going to want to use for their campaigns. So, it's really, we're trying to be a partner and constructive as opposed to destructive, which kind of gets lost sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, by working hard to establish those relationships with these premium content creators like Dow Jones Media, and that would be what, Market Watch, and some of these highly trafficked websites. So by working hard as a team and as a project to build those relationships with those premium content creators, you'll also be able to track those premium advertisers that want to be able to advertise on those websites. So yeah, you're certainly going in the right direction. How many more do you have here?
I know. I think we're pretty close. Yeah, we're done.
Okay.
That's pretty much it for the deck. So I'll stop.
Okay. So, all right. So do you want to go back over? Was that it for the deck?
I think so. Yeah.
All right. If you want to, okay. So
I mean, unless there's more, I can go over more.
We'll just recap. We're a little over an hour, and I do apologize for the delay and the technical difficulties that we had, everybody. We've had a few more people join us with some nice comments. So at this point, again, we've been going for a little bit over the hour. What I would say is, if this is your first exposure to Brave, the Brave browser, basic attention token, this project, and you are, again, I said it a million times, if you're a CMO, you're a brand manager, marketing manager, director of marketing, agency person, and you have a question about what you've heard so far, please feel free to enter that into the chat. I do apologize that we had to make the leap from the YouTube channel over to Facebook at the last minute. That was not the plan. So we probably, that was a bit of a stumble on my part, I guess. But so let's do a little recap for the sake of simplicity. So what you've described to us is the Brave browser, which is something that is a user can download today, a person, any of us, a human, can download it today. Matter of fact, if you go to the LTR website and you go to the bottom of the page, you'll actually see a button where it says you can try the Brave browser. Check it out, click the button, that'll take you to Brave browser and you can download it. I use it on my mobile devices, my tablet, works really, really well on mobile. I have it here on my desktop. Try it out. Again, you can find that. If I were using our YouTube channel, I would tell you, I was going to put the link to our Brave support in there, but it didn't quite work. So, but again, you can go to our website and scroll down to the bottom and you'll see the button where you can try the Brave browser. Try it today. Give it a shot. So you can see, you'll see that it's not like trying to get it's not as bad as trying liver for the first time, right? Download it and try it. It's not that hard. But what you described is a browser. There are built-in ad blockers. There's a lot of features that are becoming more and more attractive to the end user, gives them more control over their browsing experience. I will say, in all fairness, this isn't a review video or anything like that, but it does take a bit more energy and effort than the first time you downloaded Chrome and you just started using it, right? If you want to get the full benefit, we didn't go into how to use the browser, the various settings, all that kind of stuff. But you do have to do some things. You have to select, and chime in on anything there, Luke, that you want to mention.
Yeah. I mean, it's like for mobile, it's pretty straightforward. It's really fast, easy to use, right? Like for desktop, it's getting better. Like we announced last month we're going to do a front end. Like right now, the engine's built on Chrome, on Chromium's open source browser, but we have our own kind of Electron fork that we put on top of it, which is basically lets a lot more JavaScript developers build on our open source code and all that. We announced that we're going to be rolling out a front-end Chromium fork that'll actually allow for a lot more creature feature friendliness that you get with Chrome. But even then, I mean, there are you'll run into some buggy things here and there. The great thing about that is we're an open source browser that has a huge development community. And so when things come up, we get them in the queue, we work on them, we hammer them out. I mean, like we couldn't do this project if we didn't have the open source community. I mean, if you think about it, we've got a browser that's on all the desktop OSs and mobile. And we've got a staff of about 50-ish people. We're growing so fast I can't keep track anymore. But you know, we've got a huge developer community. We couldn't do this and the token if we didn't have a strong user base and a strong developer community to back it up. So like we fix stuff fast. And we're just trying to bring transparency and integrity to browsing, basically, like, and give everybody a fair shake, and include the user, you know, that's been left out for so long. And yeah, that's basically, if I had to sum it up, that's basically where I'd put it.
Yeah, so there's the browser. Again, you can download it, you can try it. There is that, so that's the platform, and we talked about, you just mentioned the user being the person using the browser, the consumer. Maybe it's your market that you're trying to reach. They get to play a more active role because they can control the level of how much information. Do they want to see no ads? Do they want to see some ads? They can control that a lot more than you can currently do that in Chrome. Or because we'll stay with Chrome because that's the most popular browser, but there's other ones too. We got to acknowledge. You have some control, but the idea is the consumer, the end user, the idea of them being compensated for their data and for viewing ads, pretty darn revolutionary. That's not been the way things have been handled for the last, whatever, 20 years or whatever, pretty much since the internet came along. So there's that. Then we have the content publishers, and content publishers are going to be able to focus on creating better content that people want, rather than more content so there's more impressions. That's my view anyway. Yeah. I can, as a content creator, I don't care if I'm a YouTube creator, I don't care if I'm a blog or whatever it might be, I can focus on creating good content that people will want, my readers will want, reestablishing that trust. Maybe that trust has been eroded over time because of the ads that were showing up, or the intrusiveness of the ads, that the publisher was kind of forced into that situation just to be able to monetize their content. So now that relationship between the content publisher and the content consumer gets to be strengthened. So that's a winning situation. Advertisers get better access to the consumer that has been able to play a more active role in the types of ads that they see and how many ads. So there's a positive there. So, you know, there was an interesting article that came out just this week that talked about it wasn't you know, video, or it wasn't content on a screen. It was actually about audio ads and how audio, like say ads on a podcast, consumers had expressed a more willingness and acceptance of ads in a podcast because they acknowledged the fact that it's the ads that made the podcast possible.
Okay.
So they were cool with that because they wanted to support the publisher. And and that's what I'm hearing as a part of it in Brave, is that Brave wants to be able to support good publishing, good content creation, by helping them monetize their content better and making it a better experience for the end user. Now, the last element is the advertiser. We didn't really talk about that, so let's just touch on that real quick. And maybe it's something that we can get you back on in the future. We don't want to get into it now because maybe we're going a bit long for some people, but maybe when the ad platform rolls out, maybe we can get you back and maybe do the demo, because really can't, you know, Luke was able to show you some you know, conceptual ideas of what the ads would look like, and you mentioned push notifications, but can you touch it like just from the 10,000 foot level?
Yeah, sure.
I'm an advertiser. What do I need to do to be? What will I do to be able to use Brave or Basic Attention Token to run ads? Do I have to figure out how to buy tokens? Do I?
Yeah, no, I know. The short answer is no. So we put a lot of time into this with the publisher side because we were faced with a similar problem of saying like, okay, like we want publishers to sign up, but we don't want publishers to have to even learn how to use crypto. So we have a partner that we use, they're Uphold Merchant Services. They're really good. They actually handle the back end for the for converting BAT to any fiat currency. So if an advertiser wants to come to us, it'd basically be like coming to a self-serve ad platform. Their money can go in, they can convert it to BAT, and then the publisher on the other end of it can convert BAT to dollars and never see the crypto.
Okay.
So it's very similar. We're putting a lot of effort into making dashboards and the UI UX very familiar for an advertiser or ops person to flight something in. So we have to make it easy, and that's what we're trying to do with this. But yeah, I would love to give a demo, like, and
yeah,
what we could even do is like run a trial and feature that on here. I would love to do that. And if there's any agencies or other people that would be interested, just give me a shout. It's at luke@brave.com, and I would love to have a discussion about setting up an ad trial just to get your feet wet or whatever, or show you guys anything you guys want to know. But yeah, like 10,000 foot level, users browsing, the ads that are put into the server by the advertiser, they're all on the device already. They see a push notification, like a text ad almost. They say, oh, I want to engage with that. They engage with it. Opens a new tab where you can show them a landing page. You can show them a lead gen form. You can show them a full page video. You can show them whatever you want in this blank canvas. And so there's a lot of potential there for an advertiser to create a custom experience, leveraging like HTML5 and all these other great things that are available now. Like we're looking at we had a meeting with a guy that did VR and some pretty cool stuff right in the browser. You're like, this is amazing. And so like I'm really interested to see where that goes with advertisers as well. But yeah, so an advertiser will be able to flight this stuff just like they would in DoubleClick or DCM or whatever. And that we're trying to make it real easy for them.
One thing that I'd be curious to know, or to be able to, as you mentioned that, is I'm thinking as we go through this transition, as we go, maybe advertisers start experimenting with basic attention token and advertising on Brave, but we're still going to be using legacy tools like Google Analytics, and we're still going to be dealing with the websites that we have and all of that. So from an analytics standpoint, any idea what would that traffic look like coming from an ad coming from Brave? How would I see that in analytics, and how would I?
Yeah, so we're going to use we want to aggregate the voting data that we have from the attribution model. So it'll basically come into a dashboard that looks like what you would see. So we've been spending time to develop some KPIs around utility for tokens, but what we should be able to do is like translate, and we're doing a white paper too on the advertising platform that I'd love to kind of. We could even talk here, once that's out to you and take questions on that. But basically make it so that, this isn't very hard for you to pick up. Just like every season, you're going to have to learn some new acronyms. So what we're trying to do is basically like provide ones that hopefully don't shift as much as the acronyms do in the existing ecosystem, but yeah, show a path from delivery to transaction. Using our attribution model that an advertiser can see. So it should be pretty similar. I mean, like if we aggregate the data, just like you see it aggregated in Google Analytics or other places, it just doesn't come with that. I don't need to know that Joe looked at something. I just need to know that something was looked at,
right,
and that something was transacted on. And so, we with as far as campaigns go, they think about it almost as like a direct campaign, but with this publisher component, so you could essentially throw some programmatic-ish like delivery in the mix and get a taste of both. But we'll be playing with things like sponsorships as well, and then other kinds of premium content options where you could have a publisher and an advertiser co-brand on a piece of content that we run, and someone uses BAT to pay for, and then both parties would see the VAT from that transaction and see how many people are adopting it, etc. Like the reporting piece is one that we're putting a lot of attention on now because we really want to get it right, and the concepts are kind of novel and new to to the ecosystem that's used to dealing with like data management platforms and user tracking. So that's our challenge, is to stand this up. But that's why we're doing trials where we're not going to really charge at first for advertisers to participate. We want them to get involved. We want everybody to get comfortable with this stuff. So we're trying to be pretty pragmatic about this, at the same time trying to disrupt a lot of stuff too.
So will there be a separate login for advertisers, or will they go somewhere to create an account, or do they do that through the Brave browser, or how will that work when that comes around?
Yeah, so it's similar to what we have for publishers now. You can go to publishers.brave.com and you sign up. You basically will have a verification process for an advertiser to basically. It might be us verifying that their server, is hosting the ad or something like that that's used, and it's easy. It's just registration, and then that ties in with our partner, who can then set up the direct deposit. So you get a direct deposit out. It's not exhaustive. It's not like very it's low cognitive load for an advertiser. We're going to basically mirror what we have for publishers already, that we've had out there for a year or two, depending on the publishers involved, but we want to make it really simple. And so, yeah, they don't have to come in the door with that either. They'll be able to book a campaign and then have the bat stuff happen in the background. So, yeah, just dollar in, dollar out if they want.
Cool. All right. Well, we kind of ate the elephant today. So if there are, I'll check if there are any last questions. If they're not, Luke, I do appreciate you taking time to join me here on this today. I do apologize again for the technical difficulties, but that's the world we live in. Yeah, if what I would say is, I'm always, you got an open door anytime you want to come back and do. If you got updates, maybe you want it's in the announcement of opening up the ad platform, whatever it might be, you've always got an open invitation.
Absolutely, thank you.
These videos, I'll work on trying to figure out why I couldn't get the YouTube to connect up, and maybe I'll get that fixed. Also, what I'll do in the comments, Luke had provided his contact information. I will put that in the comments. I'll also put that on the blog post that announced today's live stream. But yeah, I appreciate your time, Luke. And any last comments that you?
No, I really appreciate you having me on. I'd love to come back again too as we go forward and give updates. Yeah, and if anyone has questions, yeah, feel free to contact me through the post that Dale makes, or we have we're in Telegram, Rocket Chat, Reddit, Bat Project on Reddit subreddit. We're in the Bat Project on Telegram, and yeah, we're basicattentiontoken.org and brave.com. Reach out. We're open. We talk to everybody, and yeah, love to answer questions or come back to the show. It'd be great.
Cool. Yeah. So check out our blog for any announcements and any information. Again, the whole idea behind these videos, this video series, is to introduce marketing executives, agency owners, whatever it is, about these projects that are appearing. These MarTech, AdTech, digital digital content, digital media companies that and projects that are starting to appear with using blockchain technology. So we'll be doing more of these in the future with some other projects. And I do appreciate the fact that you were able to join us today. Luke, thank you very much for joining us. And we will see you next time on LTR on the Blockchain.